This is everything I know about how to juggle a kendama. My name is Zack Gallagher. I've been playing kendama for 12 years, 10 at the pro level, and I've won 2 world titles. The first step to juggling that I recommend actually has nothing to do with the ken or the tama. I recommend learning how to juggle 2 balls first. And what I mean by that is juggling them side to side, like so, in a column pattern. There are different ways to juggle 2 balls. You can go inward in a circle or outward in a circle. We're gonna be focusing on the pattern that actually replicates kendama juggling the most, which is side to side. Side to side form in kendama juggling is the most optimal and most comfortable. You can use balls, oranges, 2 tamas, 2 pairs of rolled up socks. It doesn't really matter. Anything that's accessible to you, start going, start learning how to get the juggling motion down in the pattern and the timing, and this is gonna help translate to kendama juggling itself. You can start out with just 1 ball if you're really a beginner, just doing 1 ball, throwing it up, catch your left hand, throwing it up again, and getting this timing down. And then once you get onto 2 balls, work on increasing your throws incrementally. So 1, 2, catch, catch, 1, 2, 3, catch, catch, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Guys, this is the easiest place to start, I promise you. It will get you the timing down. Use socks, rolled up pairs of socks, oranges. I know everybody watching this most likely has 2 tamas they can use. Use those, get started, and this is your step 1. Step number 1, the setup. As usual, to practice a trick, if you're just starting out, you're gonna wanna find the most optimal type of kendama to make progression and getting W's as easy as possible. There are 4 points to this. 1, I recommend the ken to have a short spike, a tall ken, a longer handle. This makes it a lot easier to grip. If the cups are really pushed down and the spike was super long, you have less space to actually grab the ken in general. On top of that, using a thinner ken, one that's not super blocky, super fat, is gonna make it that much easier to catch as well. Having a combination of a short spike and a thin ken is gonna make it super, super nice to grab and catch for juggles. As for the weight discrepancy between the tama and the ken, I recommend practicing with a setup that's 7 grams apart. 7 grams apart ensures that there's no drastic difference that you can actually feel when juggling. And as long as you can't really feel it, then it's not going to mess you up and get in your way in the long run. And that isn't a hard set recommendation of mine that I'm super passionate about, but it is going to make your progress easier. And last but not least, I recommend using a 7 to 10 finger string. Longer strings mean more time, more space, and overall more repetitions for juggles, so you can spend more time juggling and less time with the string super extending and coming back and messing up your progression. Step number 2, the grip. So for me, the grip is really similar for when I'm setting up for a ken flip. My thumb is in the middle of the ring and the handle stall, right here. My index finger is the highest on the ken and kind of in the middle in between the cups and the ring in the middle of that. My middle and ring finger are resting on the opposite side of my thumb, coming around on the side in between the ring and the handle, and my pinky is floating off the ken and making contact with the base cup, but not really doing anything other than that. Step number 3, the initial toss of the juggle. I'm talking about the first pull-up juggle that you do. My number 1 tip for this segment is having the tama be pulled up above the ken before you do any juggling. Some players are really eager to get into their juggles, and when they start out, they go like this. Something like this, where the tama isn't even raising above, they have no time, and it looks very frantic. They're not even getting any clean juggles off, and there's no control whatsoever. It's important to throw the ball over the ken to give yourself that space and time to really adjust your grip and set yourself up for a clean first toss that will then lead to a clean second juggle, third juggle, and so on. So pay attention to the height of this tama. I pull it up, and at its highest point, when it's about to start falling down again, that's when I grab it. It's only a few milliseconds, but it actually makes such a difference. Waiting until the tama actually pulls up over the ken, nice and smooth, as opposed to not even waiting before it even is parallel and actually starting to juggle before the tama is parallel to the ken. It's a drastic difference that will make or break the success of your juggle line. If you're a novice at this, it might feel a little awkward at first to not rush into the juggle and get some attempts off before the tama is pulled up higher than the ken. Take your time, over-exaggerate the pull-up if you need to get used to this motion. Getting reps in over-exaggerating and making a new norm for yourself will actually set you up really, really well for the timing and spacing of your juggles down the line. Now, in order to ease your way into the juggle, I'm not gonna tell you to just try and do a full-on juggle just yet. I recommend making this transition as seamless as possible by practicing toss-ups. And this is usually gonna look like 3 tricks in itself. 1, toss to lighthouse. 2, toss to lunar. And 3, toss to in. Like I said, these are simple starters into your first juggle to work on the timing and speed of the rotation of the Ken. Plus, you'll be developing your foundational skills, so it's a win-win. Step number 4, mastering the single juggle. Now that you have your timing and speed down from the last step, it's time to go all the way. A lot of beginners make the mistake of just bouncing the tama up fully flat palmed. The problem with this is that it lacks control. Juggles in itself, you're controlling the Ken and the tama separately, very, very close together. And if you do flat palm, you have no idea, no control of where the tama or Ken are going. Normally, beginners can conceptualize catching the Ken and throwing it and controlling it, but they will hit the tama up without any control with that flat palm, and this will lead to tama spinning haywire everywhere and getting you no progression out of that first juggle. What I recommend to do instead of this is to think like you are catching and cushioning an egg.
Okay, a little higher.
You're gonna notice that I'm not flat palmed when I juggle. I'm actually cushioning it with my 4 fingers up front. So it's gonna look a little something like this. And as I go down to catch the tama, it's gonna look like a cushion. This is what a beginner does right here. Or at least go like this. Just bounce, just a bounce house. Just a bounce house of just 0 tama control. And this has a little more give in the fingers. A little more cushion action. You can tell that there's a massive difference in control just by this demonstration alone. Last cue that I think will help a lot here is thinking of actually cupping the tama, because you're not exactly hitting it back. It's not really a full-on catch, but you're really cupping it, absorbing it with your hand, and then tossing it back up very, very fast. So toss Ken, cup the ball, and you land your first juggle. Don't panic, don't rush. Give yourself time with that initial pull-up with the tama. Use your hand to cup the tama up to cushion. You're catching an egg, cradling an egg. And with your timing and speed, you're gonna be able to get that first juggle off a lot less stressful than you would have without these tips. Moving on, I also recommend to keep your juggles low. If you're throwing both pieces very high, up to your head height, shoulder height, this is gonna be a recipe for disaster for control, and that's the main focus point we're gonna be always going back to. I recommend having the juggle be in the zone between your waist and your chest. Now that you understand the full concept of doing a single juggle, it's time to work on your consistency. So my recommendation to do this is to start working up bit by bit, with the first step being juggle to big cup, then juggle to small cup, juggle to base cup, working through these 3 cups individually first, upping your consistency on each. And once you have a consistency level of getting juggle to big cup, small cup, base cup, all individually, 4 times out of 10, I think you're now ready to move on to juggle around the world, which is juggling all cups in a row. And you can practice juggling from spike as well. For an extra challenge, you can even do cups, juggling to lighthouse, or lunar. And before we cover the last step of multiple juggles in this tutorial, I've seen a lot of players spend very little time at this step right here, mastering the single juggle. The foundation of your juggle technique is so important, and you're only going to be able to get there if you really take your time mastering the single, because the single is the foundation that sets you up for the double, for the triple. It really is the beginning of all your juggling lines that you're gonna be hitting down the road. So really take your time here, guys. Don't just rush through, get all these ones, and move on to multiple juggles, doubles, triples, quads, because at the end of the day, your foundation is gonna be way thinner and your consistency is gonna be a lot lower than if you actually gave this step focused time and effort. Before moving on to double juggles, triple juggles, and beyond, I recommend reaching a baseline consistency standard with juggle around the block of 4 times out of 10. Step 5, the final step, multiple juggles. Here, the real challenge that we're going for, guys, is to actually consistently be able to get 10 juggles in a row. Once you're past the single juggle, next comes double, triple, quad, quint, and beyond. The reason why we're focusing on getting consistent 10s is to perfect that juggle technique. When you're working on getting 2 juggles in a row, 3 juggles in a row, I recommend the same type of progressions for the single. Going around and getting proficient at juggling between the cups with multiple juggles, and using this technique to hone that double and triple again and again and again. But for 4 and beyond, it's really just about putting in the reps, juggling over and over again until you increase. And most players who are past that first initial step of juggling, they can do singles, doubles, maybe they can do triples consistently. They are stuck wondering how they can get to the next level with juggle combinations and incorporate more difficult and more consistency-based lines. The reason why they're struggling so much is because their technique actually isn't as good as they think it is. 10 juggles in a row, it's also 10 single juggles in a row of consistent, clean form. This level of consistency is a challenge and is not going to happen overnight, but once you have this foundation set for yourself, your potential with juggle tricks is going to be to the moon. The techniques of how to get to 10 juggle are actually all in this video. It's not anything different. There's no secret cheat code to get to 10. There's not a big difference between 6, 7, 9. There really is no secret. The only secret is the time you put in. If you're actually making conscious effort to have good technique, have good timing, have good speed, like we already talked about in this video, the only difference between the players who can consistently do 3 and 10 is the amount of hours they've put into this trick. Once you get that first 10, you have the self-proof that it's actually possible, and from there on, the foundation to getting that much more consistent will become way more rapid. After this step, we'll be focused on things like late Ken flips, late slings, Tama control, but those are all other videos. For now, I'm gonna leave you with some progressions that you can do to increase your consistency with juggles no matter what level you're at. Forget about the combos, jug to spikes, making it at the end, jug to airplanes. It doesn't matter. The higher you raise your 10 juggle consistency, the better your technique is going to be on all juggle related tricks. Isolate the movement of the juggle with this practice technique. Share this with someone who you know would benefit from some extra help on their juggles. Let us know how it helped you down below and tell us what trick we should do a tutorial for next. See you guys in the next video.